All right, we're live. Hello and welcome to Handgun Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Michad from the wild woods of central Maine, and this is your home for all the news, information, and discussion in the handgunning world. This week, Weird and I chat with Dave from the Just an Opinion channel about his experiences with the AMT Automag and all the other awesome firearms he showcases on his channel. So as always, Handgun Radio is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. Please check out the Patriot Patch Company for their awesome patches and other high-quality items. Visit patriotpatch.co for more information. And as always, shop Amazon using our affiliate link, firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. And please help support Handgun Radio. Head over to firearmsradio.tv/pledge. Click on HGR. There are a bunch of different pledge levels over there, and we really appreciate it. So, Dave, it is great to have you on the show finally.
Well, thanks. It's great to be on. I'm a long-time listener, so I feel like I'm hanging out with celebrities tonight.
We are fans of your channel as well. Actually, been talking back and forth with you for quite some time over Facebook, and been talking about wanting to get you on the show. And I'm glad to finally have you on. So, what did you do this week with guns?
Well, the only thing I really got a chance to do too much of with guns in this terrible wind that I know you guys probably got to experience at least some of as well on the East is
Sure
I did get a chance. I did get a chance to get out with the new Glock 34 Gen 5 and break that in a little bit with a couple hundred rounds.
And that's the long barrel performance 9mm, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, that's correct.
My Glock decoder ring really just kind of breaks down when you get into the practical tactical ones.
Gotcha. And this and to make this one even worse, it's the MOS version, which is the one that's got the slide cut out to accept an optic RMR sight.
So did you run it with an RMR? Or did you just use irons?
I did. Yeah. No, I went ahead and ran it. I'll probably switch it out and do a couple different ones. And of course, pretty much everything I do, there's cameras running. So, the initial break-in, I do a series of videos I call First 100, where I kind of just organically put the first 100 or more, and it's usually a little bit more rounds through a gun, and just talk about whether I'm liking it or not liking it and things like that. So I did that, and then I'll take a deeper dive and look into some different options and things like that.
So I shot the Taurus Ply 22 again. It did not like the Remington ammo. And weird, what was that ammo that you got at Cabela's that time we met up and it gunked up your 617?
I believe it was the Remington Golden Bullets.
Those would be the same ones that I tried to shoot tonight.
Yeah, they're pretty terrible. I mean, they worked better in revolvers. That is the nice thing about 22 revolvers, is just about everything works okay in them.
The nose kept catching on the feed ramp in that gun, and I've never had that happen with any other ammo.
Like the Remington Golden Bullet 22s are considered like the worst 22 like you can get.
That I'm hoping that people who buy these Taurus guns don't run the Golden Bullet through them, because they'll think it's the gun and not the bullet.
They're buying Tauruses.
I'm telling you, I don't usually shoot Tauruses either, but this one gun.
Oh no, that gun's awesome. But what I'm meaning actually is Taurus shooters, just like Kimber shooters, it's never the gun's fault.
I don't know. I'm just glad that I know which ammo works, and it's that Agula stuff, and I can get that all day long at my local shop. So, and I don't have to be 21 to buy it.
Yeah. Have you tried the Armscore 22? That stuff's like super duper plentiful around here, and I've had really good luck with it.
I haven't actually seen any. Actually, I have seen that stuff. I did try some of that. It actually worked really well too.
Oh, you know what I need to do? Actually, I need to. I'll do it. I'll do it for next week's show. I need to get out to the range, and I will bring my my Glenfield Model 60. That's the old Sears. The old Sears. What is it? Marlin Model 60, and but it's got the 18-inch barrel, so it's got like, I think it holds like 19 rounds in the tube. It's insanely deep tube. I'd bring that up. That gun is a wonderful gun when you find the ammo it likes, but it is a prima donna on ammo. Like, it despises most ammo. So I want to see if the Armscore stuff works. I know the Federal high velocity is the American Eagle high velocity was my go-to ammo. That stuff's kind of dried up around here. Haven't really seen much of it. And the Armscore stuff's around it. So far, the Armscore works in all my pistols. I have not yet tried it in my 22 auto loader. So we'll see.
Kind of touching on something I sort of mentioned there too. We don't normally get into politics on this show, but the whole all these retailers doing the 21 and over won't sell ammo, won't sell rifles, firearms, etc.
Mm-hmm.
That's complete and total BS.
Oh yeah.
And all the more reason to support your local gun shop, of which 99.9% probably wouldn't do the same thing that these stores are doing.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a few shops that you see highlighted on CNN, like, oh, well, this shop said let's not sell to anybody under 21, but most shops are not going to do that.
Actually, is there any ammo law for age restriction? Like just for ammo? Because I just remember being like just a kid, just walking into the local shop and buying, boxes of ammo. So, someone could, so I could go shooting with somebody else's gun.
I don't know about that. I know like every time I went into Walmart, it was like, is it for a handgun or a pistol or a rifle? And if you said handgun and it was like 22 long rifle, you couldn't buy it. But if you said rifle, it was fine.
I've actually told a machine gun. And it's really cool. I wasn't lying.
Oh man.
That was the Wally from York Arms had I can't remember what company it made it. It's probably a better idea because he had done like so much work on it to try to get it to work. But he'd gotten a belt fed. It used cloth belts, belt fed 22 upper for an M16, and it actually dumped him out the mag well. And he had a Ruger P. A Magpul PMag that was that had the follower and spring taken out of it. It just put it in. It just became a brass catcher. It just filled up this like empty mag body up with 22 brass. It was kind of cool.
So yeah, support your local shops. Most of these stores are ridiculous, and it is unfortunate because Walmart was the one place where I felt like buying shotgun ammo was a value, but it kind of pisses me off that they won't sell it to anybody under 21 when you can go fight and die for your country. So
also go shop and spend time at your local shop because, hey, guess what? When you go to the gun counter at your local shop, there's someone behind the gun counter.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I hate about these like big box stores is showing up with money in your hand and you know what you want and there's nobody there and you got to wait for a sales associate. And sometimes there's not even like you gotta hunt around and look for somebody who's not someone that can work the gun counter to have them go behind the gun counter so they can go open up that and give you the box of ammo that you want and ask you stupid questions they don't need to ask you.
So Weird, what did you do this week?
I unfortunately did not get out to the range. I've been busy doing podcast related stuff, which is good for the people that are listening, that are wondering about my new show coming up. It is shaping up very, very quickly. So hopefully somewhat soon you will be hearing the first few episodes, actually. What's that?
Title yet?
We have a title. I haven't cleared it with the other folks. If we are announcing the title, we should probably start talking about like, should we start teasing the opening? But yes, we have a title. It's a very, very catchy title. If you want, I'll tell you guys after when you get off the air, so you can be in the secret club.
Thing of like, hi, I'm blah blah blah, and I listen to blah blah blah.
Yes. But yeah, another thing is I helped a buddy of mine. His father-in-law passed away. It was actually about a year ago, and he had just got his entire collection. And finally, he was just saying, "Look, you know what? It's time for like to figure out like what do we keep, what goes." And so we were sorting through his collection and getting rid of stuff. Most of the stuff we got rid of were, old side by sides that neither he or I are particularly interested in at all. But there was definitely a few cool handguns in the collection. I'll probably talk about some of those more a little later. But also one of the interesting things is he has a Taurus 669, which is, as far as I can tell, it's an L-framed 357 6-shot revolver. And so it's kind of Taurus's version of the 686. And there's something seriously wrong with it. I think it has something to do with the double action fly. You can't bring the hammer back to full cock, and pulling the trigger on double action just spins the cylinder and doesn't move the hammer. So something screwed up with it. And I told him, yeah, just take it to the shop and just have them give whatever they'll give to you for it. Because honestly speaking, I don't know if anyone wants to deal with all that. And the shop wouldn't even take it. So now I'm starting to think maybe I'm going to buy it from him, or see if I'll just get him to give it to me and take possessions of it. And I'll send it back to Florida and see what they're going to do about it. That's my thought right now. I haven't actually told my buddy about this, but I suspect he'll be amiable just to get rid of it.
You pulled it apart yourself?
I haven't pulled it apart. I'm terrified of inside of revolvers, so I don't know. I mean, maybe I should pull this one apart. You know what? That's what I'll do. Is yes, I will pull this one apart and have a look inside.
Pull it apart. There could just be a part that got jostled. Maybe he decided to take the damn thing apart and didn't put the slide safety rebound doohickey right in the back's place, and now the gun's not working. Maybe that's just it. I mean, it could be anything.
You know what? And again, the bottom line is I'm just going to put it in a box and send it back to Florida.
You should buy it.
If the box rattles when I send it, I don't think anybody cares.
It's not that hard.
Okay. You know what? This is an absolutely no pressure way of doing this, because I would not take the side plates off any of my like working revolvers, because they work and there's a very good chance that I might put it back together and they will not work.
I give you all the pressure in the world to do this. I will encourage you to make bad decisions. All right, you're in your drink segment before we head into the main topic.
I am. So this is kind of what I'm doing right now. Is I'm revisiting old drinks for the show. Is tonight's drink is a whiskey sour. So that again is 2 ounces of rye whiskey. You could use bourbon too, but I think rye is kind of the best. 1 ounce of lemon juice. That's kind of the golden rule. Is whiskey is always with lemon juice, and a little bit of simple syrup. And in this case, I added a couple of drops of the Fee Brothers peach bitters, because I just thought that'd be interesting. I like to add a little bitters to my whiskey sour. It's not standard in the recipe, but I think it adds to it. And let me tell you, what's that?
No celery this time around?
I wouldn't add celery to a whiskey sour. I've got the celery bitters. It's good. You'd like it.
Okay.
It's good. Actually, Sarah would like it because it's awesome in a margarita.
She asked me to make her one the other day. I was like, oh, I don't even remember how.
Oh, goodness. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Blue agave tequila, lime juice, and then triple sec.
All right. Well, perfect. You will have your recipe in the show notes. People can check that out at firearmsradio.tv.
All right.
And so you can make your own whiskey sour. Weird.
I'll throw the margarita in there too.
All right. So with that, we'll head into the main topic, the AMT Automag and other cool guns with Dave from the Just an Opinion channel. So Dave, welcome to the show. We're going to ask you a lot of questions.
And I will do my best to answer them.
Okay. It was so funny. I was like Dave, you're going to be a great guest. You're like, no, I'm not. You are a great guest already. We've been having a great conversation. So, how did you get started with the
channel? It's funny because I actually don't get asked that a lot, but I hear that question asked a lot of people with YouTube channels, and I hate to fall into this. My answer is similar. Kind of remember why or how I got started, but I used to do a lot of product reviews for Amazon, and under the same name, Just an Opinion, and they're probably still out there somewhere. Um, and I started, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos on various topics, and of course, I've always loved guns and have been an avid shooter, and so that was one of the topics I watched a lot of videos on. And I started doing some work on a couple guns, and it is the one I remember that sticks out in my mind was an old Smith& Wesson Model 639, and I had some problems. Basically, I needed to replace a firing pin and do some other work inside it. And I thought to myself, before I tore the gun down, I thought, I bet you there's other people out there somewhere that are as old as me and have a gun like this and might want to know how to do this. And so I said, well, why don't I make a video on numbers, and demonstrated what I was doing as I was doing it. And it kind of took off from there. Um, and when I say took off, I mean, went nowhere very slowly. But so then, I got into realizing how much fun it is to just do gun review type work. And I also do gun reviews. I don't know if you actually even realize this, Ryan and Weird, but I do gun reviews for Guns America, for their blog. And so they reached out to me, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years ago, and asked if I would be interested in doing some work for them. And so I've been a pretty regular contributor to them as well, and that has helped. That's helped give me a little more discipline and helped me be a little more detail oriented in my work.
I can't believe I did not add that to the show notes. My apologies, because I do remember that when I heard you on We Like Shooting, and I have to give you an incredible amount of credit for that, because I haven't done a huge amount of reviews or anything, and the few that I have done, the amount of work that goes into them, as opposed to when I feel like I'm making just a video of something, like the whole written thing. I mean, it was a lot of work. It's a lot of work to put up even an article that some people may say, oh, that's it, but that took a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I typically for a review, I'm usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 words. So it sometimes can be a little hard. You feel a little bit blocked, but a lot of times it just flows right out too. So I mean, there's actually times I'll pare it down. I'll actually go in and edit and take some stuff out. But no, there's a lot of work.
Sometimes it's not like you can't. It's not. I can't write about the piece, or I can't say anything about it, but there's so much I need to say about it, and I only have so much space.
Yeah, and I've never had the editor come back and say that's too many words, but to be concise, and you owe it to the reader to be efficient and economical, right? So that the words that they're reading matter. You don't want to just make your paragraph big for the sake of making it big, where you're just using a lot of adjectives, and so I try to be careful of that. And I get my wife to proofread for me and things like that. You always have to have another set of eyes, either to ask a question about what do you mean by this, or why are you saying this 3 times, that sort of thing.
It kind of translates into the YouTube world, though. I know I find myself looking at the length of the videos that I'm about to post, and I'm like, is that too long? Is that not going to capture somebody's attention and keep them entertained throughout it? And
you're talking to the wrong guy here.
Your videos aren't that long. I mean, and everything is you need to see it to get the whole picture in the video that you're trying to convey. Whereas there are some videos that people put out where it's like, okay, you could have cut this down by 10 minutes and still we probably would have gotten the point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can do a half hour without batting an eye, and often do. But I do try to, even, I'm constantly trying to police myself. And even more so now is just to be more economical with people's time, and just be sort of efficient. Having said that, though, I've watched a lot of videos too where it's just like, okay, you're spilling a lot of information out here at me, but I could Google that. I could look at the manufacturer's website and read the stats. You're not doing anything more. You're not, you're not showing me any. I like to show what I call the eye candy.
A lot of value for time.
Absolutely. It may be a 30-minute video, but half of that is just you're looking at what I'm hoping are really good images and pictures of the gun and things like that, and maybe seeing it from different angles and watching it fire You know, things that you're not going to get on just a cold statistic sheet.
So how do you pick which guns you're going to feature in your videos?
I would say that is a 95% availability decision. And you know, we all have our wish lists. You know, I'd like to get this, I'd like to get that. I'll give you an example. I'll throw one out right now. Who does not have the Sig Sauer P365 on their wish list? Right? Nobody. There's nobody that doesn't have that on their wish list, which is why none of us are ever going to get it. But you know, in the meantime, you still have to, you know, if you want to put out content on a regular basis, you still have to put out that content. So you've got to be working with other things. So a lot of it truly does come down to availability. You know, I work with, for the most part, I work with, to tie back to your earlier conversation, I work with a local gun store, really small mom and pop gun store, for most of the stuff that I buy and all my transfer work and stuff. You know, he's like my crack dealer. He'll not only email or text me with, "Hey, I got this. Are you interested?" He'll text me a picture of a gun. You know, he just got it in and opened the box and takes a picture of it with his phone and texts it to me. And I'm,
do I need even to put this in the case? I won't put it in the case.
That's exactly right.
Just like, come by and give me money, and I'll give it to you.
Yep, that's right. I'm like, oh, damn you. So, but you know, most of the time I'm quite grateful, because sometimes they can be the hard to get popular guns that somehow he's gotten a hold of, and he gives me first opportunity at it. So, so yeah, that's the main reason. The other thing, you know, I'm always thinking about what people are going to be interested in seeing, and so much from a popular, like, what can I do to get a whole lot of views? Not that I mind that at all, but what's really going to be interesting? What kind of video might really have some legs, you know, and still could be getting as many views 3 months from now as it gets the first weekend I put it up, and that sort of thing. And so I'm always looking for those kinds of guns. And I'll give you an example quick on one of those not too long ago was the CZ Shadow 2. I mean, that thing it's getting as many views as ever did when I put it up.
Have you ever found like there's been a gun that you did the video and you were like, yeah, no one's going to care about this, but I like the gun, so whatever, I don't care. And you post it and it ends up getting like probably the most views or the top 10 views out of all the videos you have?
Yes, that does happen, and it surprises me in both directions. The one is that, and that I'll give you probably the better example. It has, instead of a specific gun review or video, that's usually like a what I'll call a piece where it's, you know, best of top 5 list, or, you know, something like that. Something I can do during a snowstorm where I can't get to the range and review a gun or anything like that. I can dust out some of the older subject matter and maybe do some sort of a comparison and fill it in with a lot of good color and why and all that kind of stuff. And every once in a while, a video like that will just literally take off and run gangbusters. You know, the most popular video on my channel is one such video where my expectation was nothing. I was like, well, I really need to put out some content this weekend. There's no way I can get to the range. Let me do a best of, you know, or my favorite top number of favorite guns. You know, you spend a little bit of time thinking about it, you make your notes, and you go shoot the video and you edit it, and boom, it's the most popular video on my channel. So go figure. I mean, and on the opposite side of that, you know, there's the times when, you know, I'll be driving home as fast as I can from the gun store, having picked up that new latest and greatest, and oh man, I can't wait to get to the range tomorrow, and I'm going to work hard and stay up all night editing video, and this thing is going to break the internet. And it's like crickets chirping.
Yeah, same exact thing. I've had that happen a couple times. I'm like, really? Like, nobody cares about this yet? So I have a video on my channel and it's got 223,000 views. It was done 4 years ago. And it was a video of me sitting, like, I put the camera in front of me and I sat there and just talked about my Smith & Wesson Model 60. Like basic bone stock, stainless steel, snubby revolver with the original grips.
Yep.
That is the one video that everybody watches.
Yep. Yep. Oh, well, let me give you an absurd example. One of my most popular videos, it's in my top 5 for sure, is me putting a Talon grip on a Glock 17.
Well, there.
I mean,
News you can use.
exactly. And it's, I mean, it's well over 100,000 views, and it's amazing to me.
But it's one of those things that maybe people are searching for it. Is people
Well,
have
that's
the Glock
it.
17, they want to put Talon grips on it, and they search for it, and you pop up at the top.
That's it.
And the same thing with like the comparison videos is someone might go to the local shop and they've got one of these and they've got one of those, and either they're about the same price, so which one do I pick, or one's a whole lot cheaper than the other. Am I gonna regret buying the cheaper one? Should I spend more money, or should I not spend more money?
Yep. Yeah, and the whole concept of the versus video, no matter what it is, whether it's cars or guns or computers or any kind of product, that's absolutely correct, because the consumer is out there. Forget the entertainment value of it. The consumer's out there with a need, going, hey, look, I'm going to spend my hard-earned money on one of these things, and I'm hoping that there's some information out there that will be meaningful to help me.
So this isn't in the show notes, but I need to ask this. So I noticed you post videos that aren't technically about guns on your channel. Do you ever get people who get mad at you? Because I kind of do the same thing, and I've had people get mad at me before.
Yeah, but yours are probably cool, like you playing guitar and stuff. Who doesn't like that? But
yeah, because Camaros aren't cool at all.
No, not at all.
Nobody likes fast sports cars.
No.
Although I drive Fords, and so therefore when I see it's a Camaro, I just go.
Well, actually, I've only done a few. I've done a few of those. And that's actually that's the answer to a question that's not asked, and I'll go ahead and probably answer it anyway in a minute. But yeah, I've done a few of the car videos because I wanted to, that's another subject I like to watch. So I like to watch the videos. And if you're a video guy, you make videos, you want to emulate what you like. Right. And it's also a challenge. It's also the challenge of, can I make a car video that's even halfway as good as some of the ones that I enjoy watching? And I can tell you the answer is no, I can't. but I know that now for a fact, having tried it. And so the answer to the question that wasn't asked was, what's the video that was the hardest to make or took me the most time? And that was the full, I think I called it the 1,000-mile review on the Camaro. I spent literally a couple of months shooting all different elements of that, and just poured an incredible amount of time and resources into that. And right now I'm actually looking at it online, and it's got just over 10,000 views, and it's 6 months old. So nobody cares.
And also, to be fair, like, you are currently talking on a handgun podcast that does a drink segment. And so there's a lot of people that love the drink segment so much that we're still doing it. But we get, ever so often, we get that hate mail of, why are you doing drink segment on a handgun show?
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? Because it's sort of like, especially when the content is selectable content, you can either choose to watch it, or you can choose to, to skip over it, or things like that. It's like, all right, so I made a video that wasn't your cup of tea this week. Don't watch it.
I think most like 99.9% of the listeners get everything that we do, whether they're a viewer or listener, in your case. Like, everybody listens to the show and they'll hear like the music that I put in, and it may be a recording of something where I played somewhere or something like that. And so, that's why they may see a music video on the channel, but that's just kind of part of it, I guess. And I think most people enjoy it. There are very, very few people that just are vocal about it. But
let's be honest, the fast cars, firearms, old-timey music, and adult beverages Venn diagram is just intersects beautifully.
Absolutely.
Like, all those people, the guys that like fast cars also like guns, and they like their music.
Oh, absolutely.
And they like a nice whiskey at the end of a long day. It's just it all ties together.
Yep.
We're all one big happy family.
Yep. I told somebody one day if I could figure out a way to do it at the range without without helicopters descending on me, I'd love to do a power slide right into the range and hop out and start shooting.
Oh, that'd be awesome. do this. Like, hang up right now and go do this.
Have we become a men's lifestyle podcast?
That's right.
Well, it depends on what kind of men. We're not doing organic kale reviews.
Oh, there are shots fired in the live chat section, by the way. It says, well, it is a Chevy from Diesel Mopar. A Mopar can get more views.
There's that's you talk about you know, in our world here in handguns, right? You talk about the Glock fanatic versus the M&P fanatic versus the SIG guy and all those things. That can't even hold a candle to the posturing and positioning people do in the automotive world. You know?
I mean, I already tipped my hand on, seriously, when I see you driving a Camaro, like my first thought is disgust. It's a spectacular car. It is a beautiful car. And then I turned around and watched the damn videos, but I'm one of the few guys that watches your car videos, but still at the same time, you'd be like one of those, like, I would be enjoying this so much more if it was a Mustang.
Well, that would you'll have to talk to my sister who has a Shelby GT500.
I want to talk to your sister, and not for reasons that might be otherwise said. I was about to make a snide, I'd like to talk to your sister joke, but no, I want to talk to your sister. She need to make some videos.
Yeah, and
it's a way better car than yours.
Well, and to add insult to injury, she lives in Colorado, where she has the roads where you can really enjoy a car like that.
Oh man! So this may be a hard one to answer, but was there ever a gun that was just so bad you decided against continuing on and doing a video?
Weird. There's never been a gun that I abandoned, or just gave up on, you know, didn't do any video on. There have been a couple where I had a lot of trouble with it and it went back to the manufacturer. And you know, it was sort of like this, you gotta fix this. And they did, you know, and this is, to me, this is part of, and I show that, you know, I show that this is what's wrong and it's going back, and now I've gotten it back, and I'm demonstrating that, look, it's all better. And hopefully I can talk about good customer service, but if it's not good customer service, I'll talk about that too. So those are all parts of the experience that I think is very important to share with the audience, because they're going to have the same types of problems or concerns. And that's the other part of a company. It's like, okay, this may be a great handgun, but when it breaks, good luck getting the company to return your call. People, you know, need to know that stuff too. Luckily, most gun companies are pretty good. Some are excellent, and some are not as good. But if I've never had a problem where I had to make the follow-up video, except one, and it was a Ruger, and I like Ruger. I like a lot of Rugers. If you see my channel, you know that I've done quite a bit of work with Rugers, and I think quite highly of them, as I do the company. But I had one Ruger, the SR45, that you couldn't make that gun run, and it went back to Ruger, and they literally sent it back to me. They turned it around. Their customer service was fantastic. They sent it back to me quickly, showed me everything they replaced, and I basically said, "Oh my God, it's like you sent me back the same frame and slide shell, but everything else is dead." I mean, they literally detail stripped it and replaced every single part in the handgun and sent it back to me, and it still wouldn't run. So that was disappointing. And, you know, the follow-up video was just sort of unhappy because it didn't turn out good. But
well, in Ruger, I mean, yeah, some people kind of give them crap because they tend to be a little bit recall happy of stuff, of course, but they usually make things right. So to hear them not be able to make things right is kind of astounding.
Yeah, and you know, in their defense, I didn't try and send it back again. You know, I didn't say, well, let's do this again, because I truly I had the replacement sheet, and I was like, you guys replaced literally every part in this gun. And so if all you're going to do is the same thing again, and I can't imagine them doing much more than that, it's not going to get us anywhere. So I just didn't, I just ditched it. I said, let me just get out of this gun and move on. But
but what has been your favorite gun so far to test?
oh boy, that is so hard. I have a tendency to whichever one I'm holding and shooting at the moment is kind of my favorite, unless it's really
that's the Wilson Combat Berettas.
Those were examples of guns that were not on my radar at all, and I got the text from my local heroin dealer. And he's like, hey, I got these coming in, are you interested? I was like, oh man, I wasn't. Thanks. I am now. So yeah, they are fantastic. They are absolutely fantastic. But there's different categories, right? There's the really expensive guns, and they're kind of in the middle. These are $1,200, $1,300 guns. That's a lot of money for somebody to take their hard-earned bucks and go to the gun store and justify spending on a handgun. But you can certainly spend a lot more than that, and then you can spend a lot less. So that has to be part of what you talk about in the review is the value for the money. And so if I'm looking at the Ruger Security 9, for example, to go total contrast on that, I have absolutely no problem giving it just as high a marks, and maybe in some categories even higher marks than I would, one of these Wilson Combat hand-tuned Berettas, because it's value for the money, and it's what do you get for what you've paid.
Yeah, I mean, I saw those and I was like, a lot of people complain about the Beretta 92 series because of the safety and the decocker and everything, and that is just the perfect iteration of that pistol, I think.
Yeah, I've never been a Beretta guy, and I say that in the video on the Brigadier Tactical. I've just never been a Beretta guy, and in fact, I've always kind of tongue in cheek made fun of them, especially at the IDPA matches. I got a buddy or two that'll shoot Berettas, and I joke with them that I've never seen one finish a stage, that sort of thing. And so I had to eat a bit of words there, but again, this is like getting the go back to the car analogy, guys. This would be like getting the Hennessy version of whatever car you're after. It's not exactly
at that point in time. Yes, it was made by Beretta, but it's been breathed on so much.
Exactly, that's it. So it's like yeah, the bones are there, but it was made by Beretta to Wilson Combat specs, and then shipped to Wilson Combat for further inspection and tuning and things like that. So yeah, same but not the same.
It's like to go to cars. That's like the dude driving up in the 42 Ford, but it's a 42 Ford that's been chopped and lowered and it has an LS1 engine in it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we had a little discussion before the show, and we figured we'd save it at a time. You spoke, and our friend Daniel Waters actually would probably know about this. You spoke about your Bob Marvel pistols. So you want to kind of explain that a little bit?
I'll do that. For listeners who aren't familiar with the gentleman Bob Marvel is a fine pistol smith and pistol maker, and he is, in my opinion, he is probably second only to John Moses Browning in terms of his expertise with the 1911, which certainly makes him the best living expert. And he's made championship guns for a lot of championship shooters for a lot of years. And several years ago, Nighthawk approached Bob to make a Bob Marvel version. So you can go to Nighthawk's website and search for it. You can see that they make a Bob Marvel. It's a commander-sized 1911. And so that's just a sort of preface with who Bob is, and he's big time guy in our world as far as handguns. I met Bob because as part of a story for Guns America, I actually went and spent 8 days with him building my own 1911. He taught me how to build one from scratch. And that was probably the gun I would tell you was my favorite gun up until a week or so ago when Bob sent me as a gift the hand-built prototype for the Bob Marvel Nighthawk. So the gun that he built by hand to show Nighthawk what he wanted them to sell with his name on it, I now own, which I think is just pretty amazing.
All right, I've already heard this before. As we mentioned, we talked about this before the show started recording. I'm not dripping with any less envy having heard it the second time.
Yeah, it is quite incredible. And I told Bob, I said I have absolutely no words. I'm not often speechless, but that's about as close as I can come. And I said, I can't even imagine why you would think I would deserve a gift like this. Very, very humbled by that. But he's a wonderful gentleman, very, very good man. And so that has instantly become an extremely prized possession.
Mention the serial number.
Serial number is 1.
The best serial number.
That's right.
Now, I'm assuming we're going to see hopefully a video on this.
There will certainly be. I want to do it justice. I want to properly honor it.
I'm fine with videos.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna. There is actually a little bit of footage already exists. I did take it out. I couldn't wait to get it out and shoot it. And that's the one thing that's nice is you look at something like that, you say, wow, this belongs behind glass with just the right lighting and all that kind of stuff. And maybe, but only if you're going to take it out every couple of weeks and shoot it, because guns are for shooting. So I have trouble ever wanting to own a gun that you can't shoot. That would be that would tear me apart. So and luckily I know Bob has that exact same philosophy. Guns are for shooting, so I wasted no time in getting it out to the range and putting a box of ammo through it. And there will be more range trips, and there will definitely be at least one video, probably more.
We'll keep an eye out on the channel for that. So the big one that we wanted to talk about tonight was the AMT Automag, because Weird and I have talked about this gun a few times, yet we've not really had anybody who's had any hands-on experience with one on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And in your video, you went to the extreme of actually loading the ammunition, probably because you can't find it.
Right. Yeah, you could at one time you could buy. I think Corbon was still making it. And then they quit. They didn't make it anymore. And so you couldn't buy the ammo. And I acquired the gun just a couple years ago, maybe 3 at the most, probably not quite that much. And at the time I got it, of course, I immediately set out looking for ammo opportunities, and there aren't any. The ruling discipline of thought is that you would take a 308 and you would cut it down and use it, and that's what most people were doing. And of course, the projectile is just a 44, so that was easy to find. But luckily, maybe just for me, around the time I acquired this gun, Starline made a run of the brass, and they probably made like 100,000 pieces of it, which isn't much for anything else, but for that's quite a bit. So I availed myself of many hundred of those, and I still plan to pick up a few more so that I have at least an even 1,000.
And Starline makes damn good brass. I've had
a
couple of cases of, or not cases, but I had some Starline 357 brass, and I'm still using it today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the stuff that I have shot through this gun, and some of my initial loads, as I was trying to get the load worked out, were on the hotter side, and all that brass just looks beautiful. Even once fired, it is good, very good quality brass. So yeah, so I had to make my own ammo. Well, then the other hard part, I found the brass and I bought it. Well, then trying to find a recipe, good luck. I mean, you're hitting the forums and you're starting to trust Uncle Joe from, some backwoods forum somewhere and all this kind of stuff. But I was able to find a couple of powders that had old recipes that you could still find. So
it's a gas operated pistol too, right? So
yep,
you're
yep,
having to factor that in as well. It's not
yep.
not just straight blowback or anything like that.
That's correct. That's correct. I was fortunate in that because of a different gun and an earlier story that I did, having done a whole lot of research, I know a guy who worked for AMT back in the day, which was Arcadia Machine and Tool for those taking notes, and so he was intimately familiar and is one of the few living Automag expert, that still can make parts for it and things like that. And so I emailed him with, "Hey, I got this, and what do you think I should do with ammo and all that?" And he gave me some suggestions. And the best advice he gave me was, he said, "This gun likes to run with the lightest load that will reliably cycle the action." So in other words, you don't want to go hot just to go hot. And I can tell you, having tweaked my load down to where I think I'm just exactly where I want to be, you don't need to go hot, because the lightest load that will reliably cycle this action is a pretty damn hot load, let me tell you.
I see the video, and you had quite a bit of muzzle flash on like 2 or 3 of the shots you fired.
Oh, it's like the next best thing to being able to bring your flamethrower to the range. And when I did the last video I did, where I shot, I think, a full 100 rounds through the pistol, later like 2 days later, I'm looking at my right hand and I had this bruise from the inside of between my index finger and my second finger all the way around to well below my thumb, right? It was just this whole dark bruise in my hand, and I'm thinking, what did I do? I'm trying to think, that I banged my hand on something or this or that, and then it finally dawned on me, I shot that gun this weekend. And that's what did it.
Oh man.
Yeah. And it didn't feel, I didn't feel that pain when I was shooting it. I certainly felt a lot of recoil, but I didn't feel, ouch type of feeling.
Right.
But it sure was there.
So reloading, I mean, we're not really the reloading podcast. Definitely go check them out on Firearms Radio Network. But reloading dies, reloading setup. I recall you had a blue press, so
Yep. Yeah, I was able to find dies, a couple of different. I bought 2 different sets of dies. One was an, I believe, RCBS set, and the other was Hornady. And what I found was that by blending the 2 sets, I came up with a good die set. So I took the sizing die from one set, and the seating die from the other, and that sort of thing, and came up with what worked the best.
Did you use H110 as a powder?
Yep.
That's what I figured.
Yep. And yeah, and and using the Dillon is obviously no problem at all. I use a separate powder measure. I use a separate powder drop for that, because I'm not going to load enough to be worth having a whole tool head set up for it. So,
right. And H110, I like to measure on its own. I don't know.
Yeah.
Feel better about it.
Yep. Yeah. So for that, I'm just using a separate standalone powder measure, and it gives me good consistency. And yeah, I've been happy with it. I haven't shot it a whole lot. I don't think I've shot it since, actually, the last person, I'll just say this for maybe for Weird's benefit, the last person who fired that gun was Mass Ayub. And that was last October. I guess it was last October. We have an annual date where we host Mag 40, and I'm staff when he's in town for that. And so during the week, I was like, "Oh yeah, hey, by the way, Mass, I got this 44 Automag. You want to shoot it?" And he,
of course he did.
lit up like a kid. He had never fired one, so it was an honor being able to hand him a pistol he'd never fired, to let him fire it. So.
Didn't make it into American Handgunner.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I mean,
by the way, I just since you were talking about trying to find load data, I actually just reached back to my loading bench, which is right here in the studio, and I found the Hornaday cartridge loading book does in fact have a 44 Automag chapter.
Nice.
And they do list H110.
Yep.
And by the way, for a 240 grain bullet, the starting load for H110 is 19.7 grains. My God.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I forget exactly where I settled in, but yeah, I'm somewhere in the 20 grain.
And that's the light load.
Yeah.
That's rifle numbers.
It is. It is. And when I'm throwing that powder, I just shake my head, I go, oh man.
That's rifle numbers, and that's a bullet weight that starts with a 2.
Yeah.
And has 2 other places after it.
Yeah. I'm throwing 240 grain bullets at about 1,600 feet per second.
Yeah. That's like 44 Magnum rifle speeds.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
So the new one, I guess they're coming back to market from what everybody said at SHOT Show. Do you think it's a firearm that will be easily brought back to market?
I've been following their progress, and I've been in communication with the folks that are doing that, and they're running that company, and I'm hoping to obtain one for a good thorough review. And if I am able to get that, that's probably going to run on Guns America, because I know the editing staff there was all over that idea, but because I have the luxury of having the old side by side comparison that not too many gun writers are going to be able to do. But to answer your question about how easy it is, I can say no if the history of their project is any indication. I know they've been at it now for several years, and it's been a painstaking process. And you can imagine how expensive it would be just to tool up and get things done and to do it right. And all indications are that they want to do it right, and that they're doing it, meticulously. So that's a good sign. The gun's not going to be cheap, though, not by any means. And
Right.
so it's going to have, but at the same time, I'm not saying this because I know this, but I'm just surmising that I don't think they're expecting big sales numbers. I think they're expecting to sell a certain number, whatever they've projected that makes it worth their investment and worth their while. But they're not expecting to, for this gun to be in the cabinet in every gun store and competing for people's,
Well, when you look at the difficulty people have had with just 10 millimeter guns, and 10 millimeter, like when you start dumping into like Desert Eagles and Automags and Wildies and those sort of things,
Yep.
like 10 millimeter suddenly goes from being like the most ridiculously overpowered handgun round to just like
a plinker,
a complete cream puff.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, that's one reason why I actually like 10 millimeters so much is it's like the practical limit. It is the point where you can load a handgun round to ridiculous power levels and not have to get into these crazy, actions that or recoil springs that like these various guns have.
Yeah.
Is a lot of the more powerful guns are just, they've got to be doing something different.
Yeah. I mean, just to manually pull the bolt back on the 44 Automag is like 2 men and a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't you convert like the guns like the Wildy though? Weren't they able to be converted between a couple calibers?
Yeah, the Wildies could be, and Desert Eagles can as well. Because Desert Eagles had that removable bolt, so you can just pop the bolt out and pop the barrel out and just swap those two and the magazine, and you get a whole new caliber. I'm trying to remember about the Wildies, but the Wildies were interchangeable as well. I don't know about the Automags.
Yep. But to kind of come back and try to actually answer that question, though, I think that it's going to be a limited production, but I wish them well. I hope that it's I hope it's not a they made them for a year and there's a new batch of hen's teeth out there, but I hope they're able to find a sustainable plateau where they're able to produce what the market demands, and that it's enough to keep them going. And I think there's at that level, at those numbers, and I don't know what those numbers would be, a few thousand a year probably. Um, I think there's enough. I think there's a market there for that. I think there's people that'll spend for that. I mean, look at the 1911s that sell, for $5,000-6,000. So um, it's a delicate gun. It was. Here's the thing: is though it was never an extremely well engineered gun. Um, it was. There were a lot of compromises made early on, back in the late 60s and 70ish, when it first came out. Um, and it was never the best design in the world, and so it has a lot of inherent problems. And so to say we want to make the 44 Automag brand new, but we want to do it exactly like it was before, well, guess what comes with that? All the problems and all the parts of the design that weren't necessarily so brilliant. For those kinds of pressures and things like that. So they've certainly got challenges, and like I say, I've got my fingers crossed that I'm going to be able to get a hold of one and do that side by side comparison, and I hope it is all that and a bag of chips.
So we've talked about the cool gun, but we need to talk about the really cool guns. So we have a couple guns here really quick. And here's the really cool one, and everybody's going to love this. The Steyr S40.
How did I know you were going to say that?
I was kind of hoping you.
The Steyr, or Steyr, as I think it's probably more properly pronounced.
Our curmudgeonly uncle would probably call it that.
That's a neat gun, and that's one I requested. That's one I sat and thought about, and I was like, man, I need to do something. Well, I need to break out of my the normal everyday stuff here, and I didn't think about it. And I actually requested that. I went to my gun dealer. I said, get me a Steyr, but don't get me the 9mm, because the people that have done it have done the 9mm. Give me the 40. Let me let me buck traffic a little bit that way. So that's what I got, was the S40.
If any cartridge needs the taming effect of the Steyr, it's probably the 40.
Yeah, and it and I think it. Now I will tell you, and I don't know if you've seen Ryan, if you've seen the videos I've done with it, but the one I have is not perfect, in that it has some performance issues. So, and I think the problem is it does not have a heavy enough recoil spring. That's my my kitchen table gunsmith diagnosis of it. But and the reason I say that is because it will not always return to battery. And
I had that same. How many? So I have not watched all your videos with that. How many rounds do you have through that gun?
Probably less than 300 at this point. So
okay. I had that same issue with mine for the first probably 300.
Okay.
I started having it. I was like, you know what? It's a different gun. It's not a Glock. I'm sorry, Steyr, but maybe it does require some sort of a break-in. So I just kept running it. I ran it, and eventually it went away. And I do not have that issue anymore. And
yeah.
I mean, I was running cheap Tula through it.
Right. Well, and in a way that's kind of good, because Tula is fairly warm, and so if you've got a gun that's having action problems or cyclical problems like that, you kind of want to run something with a little pop to it, because that's going to give the mechanisms an opportunity to.
Oh, and I kind of figure if I run the crappiest stuff, but if it'll run that, then it damn well better run the fancy stuff.
Right. Although we all know that that's not necessarily a guarantee, right? But yeah, so it's it is what it is, and so I have the two videos on it. I did a first 100 initially, and I had that problem, and I did a comparison between it, and the obvious comparison is the Glock 23, right? Austrian cousins, and I still was having that problem, although not quite as pronounced. So I think there's probably a very good point to the break-in consideration, and I think if I get out and put another. I don't like it. And then I kept going back and forth. It's like, yeah, actually I do like it. And, the hardest part was, when you shoot a lot, if you shoot a lot of different guns, the first thing you got to figure out is where does this thing like to hold, for me to hit the target. So, is it like 6 o'clock? Is it like center hold and that sort of thing? And what I think I've figured out with this one is that it likes a tight 6 o'clock hold. And what you want to do is you want to put your bullseye right on top of that pyramid. And, so it's almost like it's, on the back of a dollar bill, you get your the pyramid with the little.
With the eye, yeah, I find that if I'm up close, I keep the sights right over wherever I want to hit, and at range, I use the tip of the front sight.
But it's what I find is that it's a quick acquisition sight picture. So you can pull that gun up and have that sight picture quickly. And the fact that you've got to put a triangle inside of a triangle doesn't leave you a lot of room for error. One of the constant discussion points, because people will favor one versus the other, either all the time in different ways or sometimes in differently, but is they're on either side of my front sight. Some people like to have a lot of airspace and some people don't like any. This one just doesn't have any, but it leaves you no room for error, because again, it's not like you're putting that combat sight picture like, well, where does the left or too close to the right or whatever. You can't do that with this. It's you either have your sight picture or you don't.
It kind of reminds me of that video you did where you put the tape over the Glock sight, the rear sight.
Yep.
Just, you have just one big solid mass that you're just kind of point shooting almost.
Almost, yeah. Yeah. It's almost like those, what's the new gun now that's got the rear sight forward of the ejection port? It's almost like that, yeah.
The same guy who designed part of the Caracals, I think, designed the Steyr.
Yep. Well, there you go.
So the other one I had a question about, and I know Weird has a couple questions for you, was the Honor Guard. Weird and I spoke with Gary, the guy from Honor Guard, a couple of years back at NRA show, and we did a video where I actually timed him to pull the gun apart and everything. But you've actually done some shooting with one, so what did you think about those?
My very first thought when I got the gun and looked at it was like, oh look, it's a Shield knockoff. I mean, because if you look at that profile, in fact, I said, if I didn't say it in a video, I certainly said it to enough people, at the range or whatever. I said, but if you took the Smith & Wesson Shield 9mm and put it on a piece of white paper and traced around it with a pencil, and then put this gun on a different piece of white paper and traced around it with a pencil, I don't think anybody that worked at either company could pick theirs out, from the other, because they're that close. So that was my very first impression was, okay, it's a Shield clone, right? And then I started looking a little closer, and I thought, okay, well, there's some considerable differences here, and it's not just aesthetics or grip texture or something like that. This one's really built different. I like a lot of what they did with it. I love the grip. I think out of the box, it has the best polymer grip frame from a adhesion to your skin perspective of any that I've ever felt. So I like that a lot. I hate the trigger. The trigger is, and it's the shape of the trigger. I don't have any objection to the weight of the pull or the reset or its smoothness or how it feels, other than the shape. And what I mean by that is it's a gently curved, but it's not curved enough. So you don't have enough toe on the trigger. And what that does to me, and everybody's mileage may vary, but what that does to me is it makes my trigger finger slide down all the way to the toe and then start rubbing against the trigger guard. So you're either going to pinch your finger or you're just going to start to have a sloppy trigger pull because you've got the extra drag of your finger against the top of the bottom part of the trigger guard. So I would love to see them come up with a new trigger.
Like reliability wise?
I did not have any problem with reliability. And I know recently, they've gotten a little bit of press, because apparently if you hit it with a sledgehammer just right and hold your tongue a certain way, It can fire. But I don't have any firsthand knowledge of any of that. I don't do those kinds of tests. I leave that kind of stuff to professionals that that can actually do those according to a process. But so I won't comment. But I did not have any kind of malfunction issues with mine or any problems like that. It ran great. It's just I just don't care for the trigger the way it feels.
So weird. You had a few questions here before we wrap up. What were those?
So the first one that I saw, like just overall looking at you, because normally I just watch your videos as they bump into my YouTube feed. And so suddenly when I knew that you were coming on the show, I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna go directly to your channel and just scroll through it. And I realized you get your hands on a lot of what I might want to say is these low cost alternatives. And like the two big ones here are the REX or Rex 01. I don't know how they pronounce it. And the other one is, and we know Savage 1R is listening right now, the Canik TP9 or the Janik TP9.
Yep.
So what are your opinions of these guns? Because a lot of us who see them and see more or less what they are, but maybe haven't had a chance to handle them, might wonder, all right, is that just a knockoff of a certain gun that is cheaper because they managed to make it cheaper? They're working off of, existing testing and all that. Is it as good as blank but cheaper, or is it just low rent garbage knockoff?
Right. Well, the two you mentioned, and I call it Rex. I could be incorrect, but I call it Rex 01. AREX is the name of the company, and that gun is, if you look, for those not familiar with it, if you look at it, you're going to immediately think Sig Sauer P226. That's what it looks a whole lot like. But then as you start to look a little closer, you see that there's a lot of subtle differences. The way the pistol operates is different. The decocker is a little different. The decocker and slide stop are the same control, which is still weird to me, and even weird the way that it functions. But it's also a little bit more blocky or square in some areas than the 226 is. But by and large, it's emulates very, very closely the P226. To answer the quality question, I think that they did a nice job with it. I think it's if you look at the gun up close, it's the fit and finish is very nice. The materials are good. It's an alloy frame and very, very nice quality alloy frame. There's no tool marks anywhere. It's got a very nice looking finish. It's got a slight or a tight slide to frame fit. It's the trigger to me is not, and I'm not really a trigger diva, but because I shoot so many different handguns, it's impossible not to have an opinion about triggers. But I don't find the trigger to be nearly as nice as even an out of the box generic level P226, for example, that doesn't have the SRT system or any kind of gray guns work or any of that. So that they could still probably tune that trigger and take some grit out of it. I think it's a little heavier than it needs to be, and it's got a little grit. That aside, I'm a huge fan of low cost options for people, because not everybody collects guns because that's what they're passionate about or likes to shoot them because it's their hobby, and they're willing to put those kind of resources to them. Some people just need a gun for protection and safety, and they want something that is going to be reliable and is going to be accurate and all those things, but they don't have a grand to spend or even $700 or $800 to spend. So if they can go out and spend $400, $500 tops and get a good quality gun, that's a good thing. So, to your earlier point, I do try to keep that stuff in rotation too, because I think it's very important to look at those options and present those options to folks that don't necessarily have a budget to go out and buy the latest and greatest, $800 handgun.
That's why you'll never hear me complain about High Point on the show. Yeah, maybe they're not the greatest, but if someone needs a firearm, I'd rather have them buy a High Point than a Jennings.
Yeah. And also the same reason why you will hear me razz about Taurus, but you'll also hear me razz about Kimber. It's
Yep.
not like I'm razzing on Taurus because they're cheap, because I'm
Right.
razzing on Kimber and their guns are, I would say, unreasonably expensive.
Yep.
The problem with both of them is they will
some companies have found the marketing magic, you know, and that's definitely one of them. You know, but
But,
you know, just in case Savage is listening, you know, the Janik, as I try to pronounce it, is that whole line is good. I've got three of them. I've got the TP9, I've got the SFX, which is that competition long slide version, and I've got the new the one that's just like that with the shorter slide. I forget the letters on that guy, but the triggers are phenomenal. They are.
I've always been impressed with those. I mean, the big one for us is the Ruger Security 9.
Yep.
We've not talked to anybody who's had any experience with that gun, I don't think, on the show at least.
Oh.
And that definitely fits the low cost alternative. It's a little bit out there because, again, the Rex looks like isn't quite the Janik is totally a Walther P99.
Yeah.
The Security 9, if you've got a Glock 19 holster, you now have a Ruger Security 9 holster.
That's correct.
But out of all the others, the Janik or whatever Savage is all over the place. Whereas number 1 and number 3, I haven't seen. I think I've seen pictures, but I haven't seen a Ruger Security 9 in the case yet.
Yeah, and it's still very new. So it may be a little while before that pipeline gets filled. But you know, knowing Ruger, that pipeline will certainly get filled. But it is. I'm very impressed with it. It's a $300 pistol,
Hammer fired
all day long. Yep, it's internal hammer. Sort of like the if you remember the Walther PPX, and I think the Creed. I think they did the same kind of hammer. It's got that sort of flat internal hammer.
Is it like a big LCP?
Yep, exactly. It's got that type of an action. The gun is, you pick it up and hold it in your hand, and it just feels like, wow, this is just this. How did they know? You know, how did they secretly get the mold of my hand so that they could make this gun? Because it just falls in that comfortably. I've put several hundred rounds through the one I have and have had no malfunctions at all. And you know, accuracy is where it needs to be, and I say that because, you know, that I'm the biggest variable in that in that test on any given day. So but I found it to be an accurate gun, reliable gun. It's fun to shoot. It's quite enjoyable. It manages to recoil nicely without being heavy. So yeah, kudos. It's really a nice gun. I think they're probably going to sell a boatload of them, and good for them.
And let's get into the real controversial side of that gun, though. And I know where I stand on it. How do you feel about the thumb safety on that gun?
I'm not a fan of thumb safeties on handguns in general, unless it's an external hammer, a single action only type of handgun. But
how many security companies are going to elect that thumb safety?
Yeah. It's from if it's in the policy manual, and that's, makes a difference whether you're allowed to have it or not, then that's certainly a plus. The other thing about a safety on this type of a pistol is you don't have to use it. It's really an option. And so you can, the thing about it though is there is no decocker, and to charge the handgun, to have a round in the chamber, you've now got a cocked hammer. Right, and they can talk about what the trigger is still doing in terms of finishing the cocking and making it double action. Yeah. We all know that, but we all know that it's also taking about 2 pounds of energy to do that. So, so the people that feel a little, squeamish about that really delicate and light trigger might like that it has a safety that they can flip on.
Also, I'll point out, like, I haven't handled the Ruger Security 9, but I've handled the I've handled the LC9 and the SR9, and also I will argue that the what is it, the Bodyguard 380 by Smith & Wesson also has a trigger that feels almost identical, like almost like they came off the same line, even though they did not. Is They are the absolute perfect quote unquote superfluous safety you can have, because they are really a pain in the butt to get on. You really got to kind of get your finger up underneath them and pop them up to engage the safety. But to take them off, you just sweep your finger past them and they come off.
Yeah, I found that to be the case with the Security 9 as well, and
that's awesome. That's what I've heard about this gun, and knowing what Ruger's done with their past guns with safeties, this is not like the Smith & Wesson M&P with the safety, which is essentially a 1911 safety stuck on a Glock,
right?
Which is, in that case, if you've got a M&P with a safety on it, carry it with the safety on, because swipe that safety off, because that swipe safety may get bumped on inadvertently.
Right. Yeah, you got to train that motor skill as part of your draw stroke, or you're going to be screwed.
But with this gun, if you decide you don't want to use it, you probably should practice swiping the safety off just in case. But honestly speaking, you could probably get away with not using it.
Yeah, I agree. That's actually a really good point, Weird, because to put that safety on, you've almost got to turn the pistol, in your hand, put your thumb straight toward it, and either get a little nail under it and push, or just get a good bite on it and push it up. It's got a nice pronounced click into place. So yeah, very unlikely that even in a pocket holster, moving around or anything like that, that thing is going to get engaged.
The really sad part, though, is the fact that around the same time Ruger was introducing this and announcing it to us, Remington was selling their pistols for like less than the Ruger, and Ruger can make a good pistol at a starting price that Remington had to drop their price way down with the RP9s and the RP45s.
Yeah.
Or whatever whatever they were making.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, Ruger's just they just keep hitting it out of the park.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ruger was able to make a very nice looking, reliable $50 handgun. It wouldn't.
God, that would be a challenge. I want to see that.
There you go, Ruger. Let's see if you can do it.
But first, they need to make my full size 6-shot 357 polymer framed revolver.
Yes.
I want that so bad. That's just such a good idea.
So the last question.
Yes, this relates to one of your most recent videos, and it was a big teaser Glock video that you did, but the end statement behind it really kind of surprised me, and I want to hear you talk about it. Is essentially, I guess I'll kind of spoil the video, but I won't really talk about what the video is, so someone else can watch it and enjoy it for what it is. But essentially, you kind of said in the video that 40 Smith & Wesson is not dead to you.
True. I did. It was the video you're referring to is my favorite Glock. It is one of those borderline clickbait type videos. I even did a thumbnail that reminded me a little bit of the one that car guys do. That clickbait with a big question mark over the holster, so you can't see what gun I've got. But so I compared or presented, I think, half a dozen Glocks, and as I progressed through them to present the last of which was the one I said was my favorite, and the one I chose as my favorite, and I'll go ahead and give a spoiler, I don't care, is the Glock 35. So that is the long slide 40 caliber, 40 Smith & Wesson caliber, full size frame, what is hold 15, and the reason I chose it was kind of the reason I sort of got into 40 to begin with. I was never a 40 caliber guy, because I was never in law enforcement or anything like that. So I never had any reason to have to shoot it. And to me, it was either, if you want to go big caliber, you shoot 45, and if 45 isn't what you need to shoot, and then you go to 9mm. It seemed like a weird, and this is, I think the detractors will echo this repeatedly is that it's sort of this in the middle spot that doesn't make any sense. If you want something without a whole lot of recoil and you want capacity, you shoot 9 millimeter, and if you need something that's going to thump and have power, you shoot a 45. But I started collecting. Here's how this worked. I started collecting a lot of brass. So I'm out policing brass up from the range when I'm shooting, and I do a lot of range work in a range that our club leases to police departments to do their training. And of course, on the weekends, it's open. There's no police departments doing any training. So I go out there on maybe a Saturday morning to shoot, and there was a department on there, out there all day Friday. And guess what? Guess what? There is all over the ground, 40 caliber brass. So I started picking up this brass because to me, I'm just seeing money laying on the ground, and I can't leave it there. So at one point I finally said to myself, because I did not own anything that was 40 caliber, I said, I had this huge jug at home that I was putting this brass in after I cleaned it. And I said, when that jug gets full, I'm going to buy something to shoot this stuff with, and I'm going to start loading it. So that's what happened. And so I started picking it up. So now I keep it in my regular rotation. We talked about the Steyr. I specifically wanted it in 40. So the reason I think 40 is still a legitimate caliber is because it does have superior velocity with respect to the bullet weight. That they can talk about the numbers with the 9 millimeter and all that kind of stuff, but to me it's just the physics. My head can't get past the idea of the physics that if you can throw something bigger and heavier faster, that's got to be more powerful.
I mean, 40 to me, I probably had a pretty piss poor experience with 40 because, I mean, I started out shooting my dad's service handgun, which was a Glock 23. Actually, sorry, it was an H&K USP in 40. And that thing was accurate. It wasn't very snappy. And then he switched to a Glock, which was, to me, felt a little bit snappier. And then when I got my first carry gun, besides my 38 revolver, I ended up buying a Glock 27 off a guy, and that thing was ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be. I not too long ago, I don't have a 27, but not too long ago I did a video with the Glock 33, which is certainly a sister to that, and that was borderline punishing.
Very, very snappy. A lot of muzzle flip.
Yeah.
I've shot a car P40, and that sucked.
Yeah.
It was a very, very unpleasant gun to shoot.
Because that's what, a 6-ounce gun.
Yeah.
Your car. I mean, I have the CM9, and
I turned around and went and bought a PM45. So I mean, wasn't that bad, but yeah, no, that 40 just that was. I'd heard a lot of people talk about like feeling the torque from the torque from the 40 coming down the barrel. That was the first gun that literally felt like it was trying to twist its way out of my hand.
Yeah, it will. It definitely will. It will let you know it's there when you get below a certain weight. I don't know what that magic number is, but now in a Glock 23 or that Steyr S40, that size seems to handle it well. But you get anything smaller than that, and it starts to be a little punishing.
Excellent. So I think that probably wraps up our main topics. We'll head into the wrap-up section and close out the show. Don't forget to shop Brownells using our affiliate link. Head to firearmsradio.tv and click the affiliate link in the upper right-hand corner. Be sure to go like Handgun Radio on Facebook and share it with your friends, and leave us a review on iTunes. And listen to all the great shows on the Firearms Radio Network, and be sure to check out the Firearms Radio Network on YouTube. And Dave, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you, number one, being a listener for all these years, and then actually coming on the show and sharing all the knowledge you've gained over the course of time that you've been shooting and putting videos on your channel and stuff.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And so where can people find you? Where's the best place?
Best place to find me is YouTube, Just an Opinion channel. I'm also on Facebook and Patreon and places like that. But if you just punch in Just an Opinion to the Google machine, it will magically find me. And of course, Guns America is another place where I have a lot of pretty good backlog of work as well.
Perfect. And we'll have the links there in the show notes so people can come check them out. It's going to be Handgun Radio episode 195. Weird, where can people find you?
You can find me at my blog, which is weirdworld.com, and stay tuned there for my upcoming podcast. We're still waiting on a few little elements that will come in when they come in, but we're getting close.
Excellent. I am really looking forward to that.
I hope so.
So until next week, have fun and safe shooting.